Welcome. I'm Claire Shaeffer. I write sewing books and collect vintage fashions. This video focuses on Chanel's career from 1909 to 1939. Gabrielle Chanel Fashion Manifesto focuses on the career of Gabrielle Chanel, better known as Coco Chanel. Chanel was one of the dominating figures of 20th century Western fashions. This exhibition was presented by the Victoria and Albert Museum in London in 2023 and 2024. This earlier video focuses on the Chanel suit from the comeback years 1954-1971. I think you'll probably want to watch it after you complete the earlier video. Chanel opened her first clothing boutique in Deauville in 1912 and another in Biarritz in 1915, inspired by sportswear and men's clothes. Her simple designs introduced a new way of dressing after World War I. Chanel liked to wear her clothes, and she was her best advertisement. This photo from 1913 shows her wearing an ankle-length skirt in front of the Deauville boutique. Chanel began her career as a milliner in 1909, selling hats from an apartment. She relocated to 21 Rue Cambon the next year. This hat is from 1917. It is made of looped braid and it has a relaxed crown and brim, which can be collapsed. One of the earliest surviving Chanel garments, this 1916 blouse is made from fine gauge silk jersey, a contrast to the ultra-decorative fashions of the day. Chanel's early designs in supple materials were immediately popular with wealthy clients. This new streamlined style introduced a new form of elegance, which allowed ease of movement and influenced women's fashions as their roles in society changed after World War I. Previously used only for underwear and stockings, Chanel used plain silk jersey to create fashionable clothes. The blouse was inspired by collared fishermen's pullovers. The belted blouse would have been worn with a full gathered skirt. This fashion film from 1916 shows the actor Jean Reinhardt walking in Paris wearing a suit by Chanel. The fur-trimmed jacket has a relaxed fit, and the skirt is above the ankles. The caricaturist Sim published several drawings of Chanel. The drawings were not always attractive, but a sketch by Sim was a guarantee of one's place in Paris society. This stunning silk crepe dress is from 1926. The asymmetrical design features 12 rows of pintucks on the left side. The buttons are glass, and the buttonholes are fabric or bound. On this detail, you can see the horizontal pintucks on the bodice and in the pocket. You can also see where they cross the vertical pintucks on the left side. This 1928 suit is fabricated in a jacquard knit wool and silk pongee. The buttons are Galalith plastic. Galalith is a synthetic plastic manufactured with casein, which comes from milk, and formaldehyde. This early jacket from 1916 appears to be a forerunner of the suits in the comeback years. The blouse fabric is used for the lining, lapels, and cuffs. The asymmetrical blouse is fastened with 6 tabs. Actually, there may be 7 at the very waist, would be the 7th. Look at the facing and lapels carefully, and you can see how the seam allowance is folded toward the lining and the raw edge is covered by the lining. Then this would be hand sewn. This jacquard knit suit is from 1929. This is one of several designs that I would like to examine. Is there a seam in line with the buttonhole where the fabric patterns reverse itself, and again further down at the hips? This ensemble is typical of Chanel's designs in the 1920s. It features a low belted waist, pleated skirt, and loose jacket. Rather than embellishing with an additional trim such as ribbon or embroidery, Chanel used a construction element, crenellated edges, for embellishment. Here you can see the crenellated edges on the collar, turnback cuff, and blouse hem. In case you were wondering, the crenellated edges require great skill and precision. This detail shows the crenellated edge on the cuff. Here you can see the crenellated edge on the blouse hem and the box pleats on the skirt. The black and cream color combination was a Chanel favorite throughout her career. From 1930, this silk crepe de chine dress and scarf are printed with a two-tone graphic. The light drake, multiple overlays, and soft ruffles create a fluid silhouette. A matching scarf is tied around the neck and draped over the right shoulder. Look closely and you can see an overlay on the bodice and a second overlay that ends at the waist. Both the overskirt and skirt are flared, and both appear to have narrow bindings on the hems. This interesting dress has a V-neck and a scarf tie at the neck. Again, Chanel has used the fabric's border print at the hems of the skirts instead of an added trim. The top skirt was applied to the surface of the dress with the seam allowance toward the hem. This gives it a nice rounded shape at the top so it would stand away from the dress itself. Inspired by a tennis dress and perhaps a man's tuxedo shirt, this blouse and skirt from 1927 are made of silk pongee, frequently described as the bachelor girl or garçon look. This dress has a slender, straight fit and a raised hemline. This asymmetrical skirt has off-center pleats on the front. Notice the edge stitching at the tops of the pleats. It was not uncommon at this time for the sections to be edge-stitched, then sewn by hand. Sadly, we can't know when the design is on a mannequin. From the 1930s, this silk dress is fabricated in Chanel's favorite palette, cream and black. It features a flared skirt and incorporates bows, piecings, and pockets. The bib design incorporates a seam from the shoulder to create inconspicuous shaping for the bust. Unlike the primary sections of the dress, the bib is cut on the cross grain. The insets at center front are visually interesting and may contribute to the fit. This lovely dress is very interesting. The skirt has 3 layers of silk chiffon and 1 layer of silk georgette, and it is embellished with roses, or maybe they're camellias. At the hem, you can see the layered hems with the skirt of silk georgette on top and 3 layers of silk chiffon. The hems might be hand rolled. The top skirt is covered with these interesting rosettes. Notice the placements. They are carefully placed, not random. The round cutouts have a rosette at the center. Here is a detail of the cutouts. The label called them roses, but Chanel's favorite flower was the camellia. Do you think these are camellias? The edges of the cutouts appear to be hand-rolled, but the edges of the inside strips have picot edges. The picot edge was made with a hem stitching machine. These machines were very popular in the 1920s and 1930s. This two-piece dress has an overblouse with a belt at the waist and a box pleated skirt. The blouse has a surplus closure with a V-neck. In this detail, you can see the self-fabric loops that outline the edges of the jacket, blouse, and skirt hem. The loops are flat and have a twist when applied. From 1930, this silk pongee dress and bolero are printed with polka dots. The straight silhouette is softened by finely pleated ruffles and soft bows. This design provides both elegance and ease of movement. The kimono sleeve bolero has bands at the neck, sleeves, and lower edge. The bands maintain the design's lightness while hiding the seams which join the ruffles and bolero. Chanel has used self-fabric and construction elements to embellish the ensemble. This is a design element that Chanel used again and again throughout her career. The design and construction of the dress and bolero are interesting. The straight silhouette can be adjusted easily to fit a larger figure, and I wonder if it was perhaps an early maternity dress. Flowers were scattered throughout Chanel's collections, particularly in the 20s and 30s. This elegant silk chiffon dress has a scoop neck and long sleeves. The dress is decorated with self-fabric flowers on the bodice, skirt, and sleeves. These flowers were cut out and finished with picot edges, then applied to the dress. Flowers were used in abundance on this dress. Here you can see the three-dimensional effect. Flowers are appliqued to the sleeve. The wrist edge is finished with picots. A hem stitching machine was used to create the picot edges. This is a detail from a different dress and a sample stitched from a hem stitching machine. The machine has 2 needles. After stitching the fabric on the edge of the motif, the stitches are cut in the center to create the picot. This stunning ensemble is from 1929. The coat is wool tweed with fuchsia floral printed silk chiffon lining. The dress is printed silk chiffon to match the lining. Matching the lining to the dress or blouse was an early Chanel trademark. The front edges and collar of the coat are cut on the selvages. The floral motifs have been cut out and applied to the neckline and hem of the dress, and also to the facings, collar, and cuffs of the coat. In this detail, you can see how the motifs were first cut out and finished, then sewn onto the dress hem. The flowers on the facing edge appear to be appliqued to the coat. They are probably appliqued over the edge of the lining. You can see the coat hem on the right side. It is simply turned under and top stitched. This ensemble is also from 1929. The dress is silk chiffon, the coat is wool, the application of the flower appliques is similar to the previous ensemble, but there's much more frou-frou. The edges of the front are covered with leaves appliqued over the print lining. Notice the top stitching on the seams and edges as well as the appliques on the cuff. Look closely and you can see the edge of the lining under the yellow leaves which are appliqued over it. This is a good view of the picot edge. This dress from 1930 is silk chiffon, printed with pink and brown. Unlike the earlier dresses, it stands alone without a coat. Flowers and leaves have been cut from the fabric and applied to the neckline, sleeves, and hems of this overblouse. The motifs have been applied to the neckline, sleeves, and hem by hand. Even though the material for this trim was inexpensive, it required many hours of skilled labor to prepare and apply the trim. But labor was relatively cheap at the time. This is the year after the Depression of 1929. Each of the 3 skirt tiers is finished with applied motifs. The applique on the right includes several flowers instead of a single blossom, as the earlier designs had. In this detail, you can see the individual cut-off motifs on the neckline. This last applique shows the hem on the lowest skirt. From 1935, this dress is printed silk organza. Unlike the previous dresses, the flowers are widely spaced. The skirt front has less fullness than the back. Perhaps this was a dress for dancing. This gown has a deep V at the back and fastens with covered ball buttons and loops. The floral design at center back is matched. Notice that the motifs on the right side of the back are a mirror image of the motifs on the left side. It's really beautifully cut out and matched. Unlike the earlier motifs, which were cut out around the flowers here include some of the background fabric. The cutouts were finished with picot edges, then bunched together to make a 3-dimensional bouquet on each sleeve. There's a lot going on this dress, so it would be easy to miss the facing at the neckline. The edge is probably just folded over with the stay at the fold to keep it from stretching out of shape. The skirt is flared with more fullness in the back. Although it's difficult to identify the hems on the skirt precisely, the hem on the dress appears to be a rolled or a pin hem. The hem on the underskirt has a picot edge. A pin hem is similar to a rolled hem, but instead of being round like a rolled hem, it's flat. Chanel in Britain. This exhibit includes some interesting fashions of the period and the influence that British designs had on Chanel. An early Chanel design transformed functional jersey into an elegant haute couture design. She continued to innovate and use fabrics creatively throughout her career. This is one of the 3 British textiles Chanel registered in 1929. It is a silk wool crepe, tricot. This is another textile which Chanel registered in various colorways. This ad was reproduced in British Vogue on the 5th of April, 1933. Chanel was greatly influenced by British sports and wardrobes, which she adapted for her collections. From the early 1920s, this asymmetrical wool leather coat is lined with wool to wear when motoring or golfing. The coat has deep pockets cleverly concealed in the woven leather paneling in the skirt of the coat. This is one of the designs that when you see it, you think, gee, I could put that in my wardrobe today. The coat has princess seams, a high stand collar, and 3 buttons with loops at the top, waist, and the top of the skirt. From the mid-1920s, this wool and leather coat has a dropped waist and a notch collar with the lapels that extend to the waist. Notice the novel finish on the waist of the skirt. This wool sweater and skirt is from the 1920s. The hip-length sweater is belted below the waist, but the belt appears to match a stripe at the waist. The skirt has wide box pleats. I have a similar Chanel skirt from 1971. To reduce the bulk at the waist, the wool pleats are first trimmed on the underside. Then the tops of the pleats are sewn to a silk stay, which is sewn to the waistband to keep the pleats from sagging. From autumn-winter 1933, this purple and white wool tweed overcoat has a deep purple silk lining and matching tweed skirt. The sleeves appear to have winged gauntlets tapering into turn-back cuffs. This wool jersey dress is from 1924. The dress fastens with loops and ball buttons. Structural as well as decorative, the seams are top-stitched. The same yarn is used to trim the cuffs, skirt hip seams, and hem. You can make a similar trim with 2 lengths of crocheted chain stitching. The hem is finished with the same trim. This skirt suit from the late 1920s is a lightweight wool tweed. Look closely at the fabric. The floating warp yarns produce a very subtle window pane check. You have to look closely to see it. The asymmetrical opening is fastened with 2 buttons. Chanel designed for Parisian and American actors, as well as for the ballet. In 1924, Chanel designed costumes for the Ballet Russe's production of Le Train Bleu in Paris. The pink swimsuit represented the latest in bathing wear. Fashion Manifesto includes several short videos from French and American movies. Here you can see the title from Gloria Swanson in Tonight or Never. Or you might prefer 3 Broadway Girls with Joan Blondell, Ina Claire, and Madge Evans. Here is a screenshot from 3 Broadway Girls. This portrait of Chanel in 1930 is by Man Ray. In 1931, Chanel's business was so large she had 2,400 employees in 26 sewing ateliers. The model Marion Morehouse is wearing a black crepe bolero dress with fringed and paillette embroidered skirt. As early as the 1910s, Chanel promoted black as a chic symbol of modernity and featured it as a stylish wardrobe option. This is one of several photographs which I've used from the Victorian Albert press kit. According to Vogue, in 1919, there is nothing so popular at present as lace for afternoon dresses. Chantilly lace was originally a bobbin lace made by hand and celebrated for its delicate, naturalistic flowers. As early as the 19th century, companies such as Maresco produced fine mechanized versions on lace machines. In 1926, American Vogue declared Chanel's crepe de chine day dress a forward of fashion, after the popular American car. Chanel often used embroidery on her simple designs. Sometimes the decoration was on the cuffs or collar, but it sometimes covered the entire garment. From 1918, this coat is embroidered silk satin and trimmed with rabbit fur. The decoration of this coat is inspired by the churpi, a ceremonial garment worn by women in Turkmenistan. Chanel applied this traditional patterns in neutral colors. Here you can see the beauty and the detail of the embroidery stitches. This crepe de chine blouse from 1922 features embroidery from the House of Kidmure. The atelier was established in Paris in 1922 by the Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna Romanova, a Russian aristocrat who fled Russia during the 1917 revolution. The employees at the House of Kidmure were Russian immigrants who embroidered elaborate embellishments for Parisian couture houses. Many of the techniques and designs were from the embroideries of Central and Eastern European traditional dresses. This fabric looks like a richly embroidered material with metallic thread motifs. It is instead a woven wool and silver metal fabric, registered by Chanel as a unique design in 1923. The label provided no information about this fabric. It looks like the bands were woven individually like ribbons. Then they were sewn together with narrow pieces of velvet. Perhaps the velvet was also narrow ribbons. From 1923, this wool twill coat is covered with vertical stripes of elaborate machine embroidery. The embroidery pattern is placed horizontally on the sleeves and hem of the coat. The collar is fur. You can see the embroidery details here. From spring-summer 1923, this straight dress is embroidered silk georgette with glass beads and gilt thread. The front of the dress has a large circular motif. The skirt has horizontal motifs and is open on the sides from the knee down. This side view shows how the embroidery was positioned around the circular motif at center front. According to Edna Woolman Chase, Chanel's success was due as much to her personality as to her skill and hard work. She also outlived many of her competitors. This early photo shows Chanel wearing a suit with trademarks of her famous Chanel suits. You can see the use of two fabric patterns and a skirt with ease to move in. Look at the striped blouse. Are the stripes original on the fabric, or has the fabric been cut apart and the stripes rearranged so some are smaller? The invisible accessory is the perfume you wear. If you want to know more about the history of Chanel No. 5, you should read The Secret of Chanel No. 5 by Taylor Mazzio. Launched in 1921, the Chanel No. 5 bottle is a clean, simple shape. The top of the stopper is etched with two interlocking C's enclosed in a circle. This is Chanel's first use of the iconic detail for her brand. These sketches for Chanel's autumn-winter collection are by Christiane Berard, a popular fashion illustrator at the time. The sketches are watercolor and Chinese ink on paper. Berard was a contributor to Harper's Bazaar. This photo shows some of Berard's drawings hung in the background of Chanel's suite at the Ritz Hotel in Paris. Luxury and line. This large gallery features Chanel's evening wear. Some of the designs were inspired by lingerie, some were asymmetrical, and many were covered with fringing, pearls, beads, or sequins. There is a variety of designs and many which you will enjoy. This gallery focuses on evening designs which were made in the flou ateliers. These are the ateliers that concentrate on dressmaking and soft fabrics, as compared to the tailleur ateliers, which make suits and coats. The large display case in the center of the gallery features dresses from 1929, which were worn by Lady Minoru Foley, a wealthy young English widow and frequent Chanel customer in the 1920s and 1930s. Ballroom dancing was one of her favorite pastimes, and the two dresses in the case are the same design in different colorways. This is a detail of the yellow dress. The sequins are large and overlap. Notice how some are horizontal and some are vertical, and below the vertical sequins you have chiffon. From 1925, this stunning dress is silk satin, lace, silk ribbon, and crystal beads. The dress has a scoop neck and dropped waist. The lace bodice is open on the left side to show the silk satin underbodice. The flowing ties at the neck and waist were typical of Chanel's dresses at the time. The very narrow hem preserves the lightness of the skirt. In the early 1930s, Chanel sometimes used the textiles and techniques of lingerie for her evening wear. She used silk fabrics such as chiffon, satin, lace, and tulle to create youthful, sophisticated designs. Here you can see the back of this handsome ensemble. The photos don't do this ensemble justice. It really needs to be on a person so that you can see how the garment moves with the body. Chanel used bows from the 1920s onwards. The bows were noticeable features in the 1930s. This neckline has a very narrow binding. I couldn't tell whether the bow is loose or sewn flat, but I think it's really very pretty. In these details, you can see the intricate seaming in the back as well as the front. You must remember that the women who wore these dresses had a very different lifestyle from the one that most of us have. And at dinner, in the evening, they dressed for dinner, and they might wear long dresses or very fancy short dresses. Here is one last look at this handsome design. From spring-summer 1933, this youthful design is fabricated in pale pink cotton organdy. This dress was designed for dancing. This is a concept I had not considered because most of the dresses I had when I was young did not have concentrated fullness in the back. The fullness was equidistant all the way around. Here there is decorative lacing at the back and a large bow with streamers at the hips. The neckline is finished with two large collars, a plain organdy collar, and an embroidered collar. Notice that the front is relatively flat, perfect for dancing, with more fullness at the back, which could be seen when you dance. The streamers on the bow add even more fullness to the back. The skirt has a layer of embroidered organdy over a skirt of plain organdy. This is another youthful design. The rosettes at the waist appear to be circles of narrow laces, which were gathered on one edge so that they could be sewn and to make the circles. From 1930, this dress has an intricate pintuck design at the waist and bodice with graduated ruffles on the skirt. Here you can see the details of the pintuck design. I think this is an especially interesting design on the dress. The skirt and ruffles are also most unusual and very interesting. The ruffles appear to be set into seams or perhaps just set into darts. From spring-summer 1930, this dress is silk tulle, silk lace, and silk crepe. It is worn over a silk satin slip. For several collections, Chanel created a variety of lace and silk designs. For this design, the lace is applied to the silk crepe. This dress is inlaid with panels of machine lace in a way that gives complexity without weighing down the fall of the garment. The lace appliques were applied before the garment was stitched together, so that the decoration is worked naturally into the cut of the garment. To do this, a muslin or calico toile would have been fitted at the outset. Then a pattern was made from the toile so they could make the individual dress sections. This is still done today, particularly on garments which are completely beaded. Here you can see the lace design on the tulle and how the lace and tulle are pieced. Here is another detail of the skirt. Remember, this dress is from 1930, only a year after the stock market crash in 1929, which affected countries all over the world. Chanel used fabrics very creatively rather than adding expensive ornaments like fringing, furs, or beading to the garments. This is an earlier dress from 1920, 1921. Stunning. It has an elaborate beaded apron over a plain georgette skirt. This apron effect appears later on some of the suits in the 1960s. The gold embroidery at the neckline is interesting and very unusual. There are several youthful designs in this display case. From 1930, this dress is fabricated in cotton broderie anglaise. At the neck edge, motifs have been applied over silk tulle. At the waist, the fabric is finely sheared to add fullness and interest. Initially, I thought the skirt was cut on the cross grain with the selvage at the hem. When I looked more closely, I decided that a strip of selvage was applied to the hem instead. This organdy dress from 1932 is another very youthful design. The armholes and deep V neckline are edged with organdy petals. The dress fastens with buttons and loops. The dress has godets at the hips to add flares to the skirt. The dresses in this section had a variety of ideas for handling lace. On this dress, some of the lace inserts are transparent, while others are not. The skirt is similar to an earlier dress with a lace skirt over a plain skirt. The overlay on the bodice is interesting. It appears to cover the lace bodice. Why was it used? Was it to enhance the bust for a young woman or just decoration? The straight silhouette of the dress is softened by the curves of the lace insets. After examining this detail, I think the lace may be applied instead of inset. The plaid skirt has a lace overlay. The lace overlay appears to be sewn to the underskirt, perhaps with small satin stitches. From spring-summer 1937, this dress is equally lovely, but very different from the previous dress. On the bodice, most of the lace and silk panels are rectangles. On the skirt, the panels are pie-shaped to create a flared skirt. The silk bodice has a cutaway neckline. It is finished with small scallops at the neckline, and the scallops are used again at the wrist. Here you can see the pie-shaped panels and how they widen as they extend toward the hem to create the flared skirt. This silk chiffon dress is from 1930. Trimmed simply with self fabric, it has several interesting details. The bow on the shawl is a simple rectangle with a twist at the center. The edges are turned under and top stitched in place, or it's quite possible that the edges were top stitched and then hand sewn in place. The edges of the shawl look like they are finished with a picot edge. The same bow motif is used on the skirt. It's difficult to tell whether the bands are applied or whether they are set in. The 6 rows of hand shirring at the top of the tiered skirt are decorative as well as functional. The seams which join the tiers on the skirt look like they might be tiny French seams, or if you're French, you would call them English seams. Chanel used black lace for this asymmetrical gown. Notice the flounce on the left hip. The cap sleeves are held away from the arms with metal boning. It's a very interesting treatment. I really like the seaming on this dress, but I think it's overwhelmed by the rosettes and the flares extending below the seams. From 1933, this silk lace dress is over a silk satin lining. The lace is embroidered with gilt metal threads, which have been couched over the dress to give it a subtle sparkle. Sadly, the dress was not displayed so that you could see the unusual halter front, but if you have the exhibition catalog, you can see it there. From 1925, this cloak is edged with cockerel feathers. The cloak was available in several colors. Here you can see white and yellow. From the mid-1920s, this dress is embroidered with tiny glass beads onto the silk to create a shimmering surface that complements the drape of the dress. Chanel tended to avoid superfluous decoration. Instead, here she focused on the material and the cut of the garments. Also from 1920, this dress is embroidered with tiny glass beads. I like the asymmetrical skirt. What do you like? Bijoux des diamants. Chanel was a great advocate of costume jewelry, but she also created fabulous diamond jewelry as well. And here you're going to see a couple of pieces from 1932. Chanel is known for her asymmetry in both her designs and her jewelry. And these 2 pieces are particularly interesting. The brooch is one of only 2 surviving examples from the 1932 Bijoux de Diamant collection. The irregular 5-pointed comet star uses diamonds of different sizes on the tip of each point. The necklace on the right side is very unusual. It's not asymmetrical, but it's a very different symmetrical design. This museum photo shows a portion of the dazzling designs displayed in this gallery. I've used several museum photos from the press kit throughout this video. In the mid-1930s, Chanel was using fringing extensively. This evening dress features two long links of fringe to emphasize movement. In the picture on the right, you can see the garment structure, a simple silk dress with the fringe sewn to the skirt and to the neckline. The upper edge of the fringe is covered with a silk band. This trouser suit from the late 1930s was owned by Diana Vreeland, editor-in-chief of Vogue magazine in the 1960s. She wore the ensemble when entertaining at home. The sequins on both the bolero jacket and the pants are sewn to chiffon. On the bolero, the sequins overlap to give the jacket weight. On the pants, they are flat so that the pants will be light. This is one of the designs I examined on my first research trip to the V&A in the early 1980s. I thought it was as wearable in the 1980s as it was when it was new, and it still is in style today. The blouse is completely handmade. The collar and front ruffles have handmade pin tucks, which are released at the ends to create fullness. The neckline is finished with a bias binding. The lace is sewn on completely by hand, and on the blouse there are inserts of lace between rows of pin tucking. This is a photo I took later in the 1980s when I went back with David Coffin, who was with Threads magazine. I wrote an article about Chanel suits, and we had thought about writing an article about this blouse, so I carefully measured it. The collar and the ruffles are separate. When worn, either could be worn on top at the front, but you would probably prefer the collar on top. At the ends of the collar and ruffles, the lace is mitered. There are inserts of lace, and in between the lace inserts, there are 18 pin tucks on each side, and there's a similar design on the back of the blouse, which of course is going to be hidden under the bolero. If you are an advocate of French hand sewing, this blouse would take time to make, but it is not a difficult design. It has handmade thread buttonholes and large pearl buttons. When I first saw the blouse, I thought the buttons were too large, and of course the buttonholes are large to accommodate those buttons. But I've changed my mind. If the buttons were smaller, they would be lost underneath the front ruffles, and I think you need the larger button to peek out just a tiny bit when the blouse is worn. I've always thought I would really like to learn French hand sewing and make a blouse like this, but I've decided that I don't have the patience. But it isn't a difficult blouse to make. It just requires time and patience. From 1937, this black gown and cape are covered with overlapping sequins embroidered on net. The short cape is lined with red silk satin to match the long sash. This cotton velvet fabric was especially made in Manchester, England for Chanel. This dress has a square neckline and a skirt that flares at the knees. The seaming is very interesting, but the puckered seams are a distraction. The puckering may have been caused by an incorrect cleaning method. This is an interesting waist finish. It appears that the bodice was made completely before it was sewn to the skirt, and then that small section overlapped the skirt where they were sewn together. From 1937, this dress features horizontal bands of velvet and lace in different widths. The velvet on the bodice is described as ribbons. It is quite probable that velvet ribbons were also used on the skirt. Look closely at the tops of the ribbons on the skirt. They are gathered slightly to create the flared skirt when they're sewn to the lace. From 1939, this dress has a grosgrain bodice and a long floating silk chiffon skirt gathered at the waist. The bodice is shaped with seams over the bust and 3 darts on each side of the opening. The bodice fastens at center front with hooks and eyes. The trim is red, white, and black grosgrain or Petersham ribbon. The ribbon is ribbed with scalloped edges, making it easy to shape around the curves. But on curves that have as much shape as this bodice does, you're going to have to work at it a little bit at a time until you get the shape that you want. From 1932, this dress belonged to Lola, Duchess of Westminster, who became the 3rd wife of the Duke of Westminster after his long affair with Chanel. The simple dress is cut to flare below the knee. Decorated all over with sequins, the design has a stunning pattern with trompe-l'oeil bows. Also completely covered with sequins, this dress is completely different from the previous dress. It is a simple straight dress with 4 flared skirts. It has a square neckline and a beaded corsage on the left shoulder. For some reason, I neglected to make any notes about this beautiful cape. It's embellished with a very interesting pattern design, and I decided to include it anyway. This 1926 dress is embellished entirely with all-over embroidery. Notice that the motifs increase in size from the shoulder to the hem. The front of the dress is filled with a black chiffon modesty piece. There is a black insertion also at the waist. I came back to this dress from 1939 because it was from one of Chanel's last collections before the Nazis rolled into Paris in June 1940. I have not included any information about Chanel's activities during World War II because that is not my area of expertise or interest. I am interested in the garments and the way the garments are made and how they can influence you and me and the garments which we wear and create today. I have a large collection of vintage Chanels. I've made several YouTube videos about them which you will enjoy, as well as 2 videos about this Chanel exhibit. This is an earlier video which I made to focus on the Chanel suits in the comeback years from 1954 to 1971. I think you will enjoy this video. I also highly recommend purchasing the exhibition catalog. If you haven't purchased it before you go, please do. You will find it's very helpful to read the information about Chanel and the garments before you look at them, and it will answer some of the questions for you, and you will enjoy the exhibit even more. If you're not able to go, I think you will enjoy the exhibition catalog. I'm Claire Shaeffer. Thank you for joining me today to look at this fabulous exhibit at the Victoria and Albert Museum. It focuses on the early years of Chanel.